Hello everyone, I'm Ben Contreras and welcome to another episode of Ben Talks About. I am of course your host, Ben Contreras, and it doesn't feel that very long ago that Game Freak and the Pokemon Company released their 8th generation of Pokemon video games, Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield for the Nintendo Switch. And since then we got ourselves a spin-off title which was a semi-sequel to what was considered to be one of their best spin-off games, the rather controversial but still perfectly fine remakes of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl that people have been hyped for ever since the release of Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire on the 3DS, and of course the other semi-spin-off title, which has been considered by many people to be one of, if not the best Pokemon video game of all time, even though it really isn't. Despite it being perfectly fine in its own way, Pokemon's Legends Arceus. And just a couple of weeks ago, Game Freak went ahead and announced their next generation of Pokemon video games, that being the 9th generation Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet. I of course will be getting the game once it comes out, since I've been in a sort of Pokemon binge for the last year and a half now, trying to play through each of the generations of Pokemon games as best I can, and trying to give a sort of semi-opinion on it, which I will be making a video of in the future as soon as I get finished with those titles. But yeah, I wanted to go ahead and make this video to give my semi-thoughts on what was shown to us, and some quality of life things that I would like to see be implemented into the games, even though I know for a fact they're probably not going to be. But this is just a video about wishful thinking, and there's nothing wrong with a little wishful thinking here and there. The trailer for the two games. From what we saw, we got ourselves a game that looks like it is taking the same sort of 3D engine that was built for Legends Arceus, which is all the way over there, where it has more of an open world style to it compared to the other previous generation of games. There's a free controlling camera and all that stuff. They didn't show anything specific in terms of the overall gameplay, but we can assume that it's going to be something that's very similar to Legends Arceus. We did get to see a lot of the environment, and from what we've seen before, it looks like the region is going to be based around Spain, which they have really been interested in that sort of like regional concept ever since the release of of Pokemon X and Pokemon Y, because a lot of them have been based around European or semi-European style regions. The main exception to that being Pokemon Sun and Moon, which was based around Hawaii. So it does seem like this one thing I'm hoping is that this region also has a lot to it to give it its own identity without being similar to the previous 3D games that had come out on the Switch so far. But again, it seems like they're building it off of the Legends Arceus engine that they made for that game. One thing I am hoping is that they don't stray too far from the sort of traditional things that you would do in Pokemon. Because recently, a lot of the time, the past few generations, they've been trying to sort of give a game its own identity by removing certain things. One of the biggest examples was when Sun and Moon was first released, and they replaced the gym leaders of the games with the trials that you go through, which was perfectly normal in their own right. It's more or less the same sort of like concept, just with a different coat of paint added to it. Afterwards, for Sword and Shield, they brought back the gym leaders and made them, I think, as the best way they could have, because they actually gave all of the gyms they're all like fought in like legitimate like arenas with like crowds, and there's like, it seems like there's a lot more. They seem a lot more grandiose compared to the previous games, where all the battles seem to be a lot more private. But the game itself lacked an Elite Four, which Sun and Moon did have, despite it not having gym leaders. technically, according to the story, it was the first group of Elite Four in the Alolan region, but they were still there. Sword and Shield got rid of the Elite Four, so immediately once you get to the end of the game, you immediately fight the champion. So one thing that I am hoping for this generation is that they actually bring back both the gym leaders and the Elite Four, because it's been a while since we've had it. It's been since it hasn't been until Generation 6 that we've actually had that full like end game experience. So I'm hoping that they do bring that back. Um, Not to say that the taking away those features diminish the quality of Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield. They're still perfectly fine games. It's just that um, it has almost a bit of like a. It just makes it feel like it's not as. It just doesn't have the sort of grandiose um, feeling as you did playing from Generation 6 backwards to Generation 1. So yeah, that's one thing that I'm hoping that they do. Another thing that we saw in the trailer is that they seem to be using a lot of Pokemon from Generation 4, which, it makes sense considering, Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, and Legends Arceus have just come out, so they're trying to, bring that sort of fandom that Generation 4 has gotten over the years by bringing Pokemon from the 4th generation back, which, that makes sense, but I'm hoping that a majority of the Pokedex is still Pokemon that are exclusive to this region. I'm hoping that the regional Pokedex has a lot more variety of newer Pokemon rather than reusing Pokemon from previous generations. This has been a sort of problem more or less ever since they went 3D with Pokemon X and Y several years ago, which doesn't feel like that game should be that old, but it really is. But yeah, the amount of new Pokemon that I created for 6, 7, and 8 have been significantly lower, and they've been relying a lot more on Pokemon from the previous generations, which, from a company standpoint does make sense, because the series has been going on for a very long time now, and there's been over 800 Pokemon created for these games. But I feel like that shouldn't excuse them from making new Pokemon to give this region its own identity. If fan creators can release fan games with entire Pokedexes filled with nothing but Pokemon that they've created, then what's really stopping the actual game company from doing the same? So yeah, that's not meant to that's not meant to give the developers a bad name. I understand how difficult it can be to work on a project like that, especially when it comes to the game industry. But I just hope that we get a lot of Pokemon from this Pokedex that are actually exclusive to this region. I don't think we're ever going to get to a point where it was like when Generation 5 was first released, way back when the entire regional Pokedex was filled with nothing but Pokemon that were exclusive to Black and White. But I am hoping that, again, a majority of the Pokemon are ones that are new. One other thing that I would like to go into semi-detail about, that is, again, one of the sort of, not necessarily a feature that I feel like for a fact they're going to add, but just a sort of quality of life update that's not like overly that's not too much of a big deal, but it's just something that I'd like to see be implemented in some sort of way. So here is my overall concept, and if I've talked about this before in one of my previous videos that I've made on the Pokemon series, I apologize, but so here's the idea that I have. So lots of times when trying to capture a Pokemon for your team, and ever since Generation 3 when they implemented natures and abilities and all that, there have been times where people playing through the games want to get a nature that'll help the Pokemon do better in a specific in a specific way. You wouldn't want a Pokemon that is primarily meant to be super fast to have a nature that ends up decreasing their speed stat and increasing a stat that they're not going to end up relying on. I've been going through this sort of phase for quite a while now. I personally am not into competitive Pokemon battling whatsoever, but it's more or less just a way to make the journey a lot more easier in a way. So, when you're doing this, you can spend several minutes to up to maybe an hour looking for capturing the same Pokemon, hoping that it's the nature that you're specifically looking for. And doing so, they end up taking a lot of box space, which is probably one of the only reasons you would ever want to release a Pokemon from the box, unless you're doing a Nuzlocke run and you're implementing the rule where you have to release the Pokemon whenever it quote unquote dies in that kind of run. But what ends up happening is that all of those Pokeballs that you end up using to capture those Pokemon, they pretty much go to waste. Because you're releasing the Pokemon, you're releasing the Pokeball that it's in as well as any held items that they had back then, which can really mess you up if you have a Pokemon with an item that really helps them. So one concept that I feel like they should have done for a while now is that if you were to say release a Pokemon, whatever items or Pokeballs they had with them, they should go back to the trainer, because from a logical standpoint, what is stopping them from keeping the Pokeball or the items that the Pokemon had when they're with their trainer? When Ash released Butterfree, Butterfree didn't take his Pokeball with him. So what's stopping us from being able to keep the Pokeballs or whatever held items they had and give it to, say, a previous Pokemon? I feel like that would make grinding a lot more of less of a hassle, because you're saving money that you would use on Pokeballs, especially if you're later on in the game and the Pokeballs get super expensive. That's the sort of concept that I feel like would make the games a lot less of a hassle to get through if you're, say, trying to go to raise a sort of competitive team. That's just the kind of concept that I would like to see be implemented. Again, it's not necessarily something that I'm expecting them to implement, but it's just again, it's wishful thinking, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with wishful thinking. One other thing that I would like to see be brought back is for the past two generations at this point, with Generation 7 and Generation 8, the main rival that your trainer fights throughout the journey has been the same sort of happy-go-lucky kind of character that we've, more or less grown sort of accustomed to. It's been a while since we've had a rival that can genuinely be seen as someone we would like to beat in an actual battle. The rivals from Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield, they're basically sort of cut from the same cloth. I mean, Hop does get a bit more merit than How does, because, Hop has relations to, the champion, and he has that sort of thing going around with him, being in his brother's shadow and all that. So that makes him less of a blandish kind of rival compared to How, but I do feel like it's been long overdue since we've gotten a rival that sort of holds the same sort of threat as Blue or Silver from Generations 1 and Generation 2, and I feel like being able to, especially if they implement the concept where your rival ends up being the final boss of the game because they managed to beat the league before you do, I feel like that would make, if the rival was a character who you wanted to see get beaten by your lead character, just like how the previous generations did before the newer entries in the series, I feel like that would make beating the games all the more satisfying, because there's nothing more satisfying than having someone than having a person who's been, an absolute jerk towards you be left in the dust. It has that cathartic sort of feeling to it. And I feel like if they finally gave us that rival once again, I feel like that would bring these games a lot more merit compared to the previous two generations. Again, not to say that those two generations are bad because of it. I'm just saying that it would be nice to get something different. So overall, I am definitely excited for these games. I am glad that they gave us a look at what the actual gameplay itself is and didn't just rely on like a movie style trailer for it. I am glad that we also got to see what the starter Pokemon are going to be, which by the way I am going to be picking the grass starter. But not for the reasons that many people on the internet decide to make all those memes about what its possible evolutions could be. But yeah, these games, I am definitely excited for these games to come out. I have been on a sort of Pokemon binge lately. I'm currently going through Generation 5. So once these games do come out, I will definitely going to be making a video talking about them. And hopefully these titles definitely build on what these previous 3D games have gave us, and give us a generation that we can all agree on is pretty great. That gives us, the features that we've been yearning for a while now, ever since, these games fully went 3D, and gives us an experience that, is a really good one, and it is a game that we can all agree on is pretty good. But yeah, but still, the game still has a while before it fully comes out. So and of course we'll be getting more information about it later on in the future. So yeah, until I see you all next time, I am Ben Contreras. I hope you all enjoyed me talking here. I had a lot of fun giving my 2 cents about it. And until I see you all next time with whatever topic I decide to talk about, no matter how quote-unquote irrelevant the topic may seem, because lots of people have already made videos on it. So until I see you all then, I am Ben Contreras, and